bevo.com.
Personnel Today voted him as one of the top 10 most influential people on management in the UK today. Tom Peters says about his book Global Remix, Richard Scase is ahead of the curve. Richard Scase, Professor Richard Scase, welcome to Bevo. A lot of people and some younger CEOs have never actually been through an economic downturn, so they don't really know how to behave during this time. For example, one of my friends who's over in the city, his idea of an economic downturn is the fact that last year he got paid 5 times his salary as a bonus. This year it's only going to be 2 times his salary as a bonus, and he's freaking out. So could you just maybe give some advice to CEOs that haven't been through a downturn like this, and what's the best way to lead your organisation at a time such as this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, because you're absolutely right. I mean, lots of people are moving into this CEO position, and they've been in a period where things have been really good. They've been able to manage through giving bonuses, giving wage increases, giving share in the profits, all these sorts of things. And that's created, I think, very much a complacent kind of culture. I think economic downturns are very good news. Very good news because it forces companies to think, what are they good at? They have to focus upon their core capabilities, their core competitive advantage. They have to do a reappraisal or reanalysis of what they're good at and of course what they're bad at. But I think most importantly of all, what's exciting about managing in an economic recession, if it can be exciting, is that it tests your skills as a leader. We can all manage when things are good by giving people pay increases and those kinds of things. But in a recession, you have to take tough decisions. My sign of weak leadership, of weak management, is when you ask for voluntary redundancy. When you ask for voluntary redundancy, you're bucking the issue. And it's bad news. Why? Because the best people leave. The best people take the voluntary redundancy because they then, on the following Monday morning, go and work for another company. They know they can get jobs elsewhere. So you're left with the average underperforming members of staff who don't take the voluntary redundancy. A good leader, a good manager in economic recession analyses his or her business, looks at the strengths and weaknesses in terms of competitive advantage, product portfolio, market portfolio, those sorts of things, but also looks at the human resource base and has the courage, the self-confidence and the guts to say, right, we're terribly sorry, we don't want you in this business anymore, we don't see how you fit into our future plans, to those people. And to these other people to say, look, we really need you now to develop the business in what's a very difficult, challenging economic environment, which is going to last not for the next 12, 18 months, but probably for the next 3 to 4 years.
During an economic upturn, CEOs are always fighting for talent, but yet during an economic downturn, they seem to focus more on the short-term cash advantage of voluntary redundancies, as you said, as opposed to focusing on the long-term strategic advantages of having talent in the business.
Even in economic recession, the fight is still, the global fight is for talent. Remember, talent no longer equals qualifications. Where you have mass higher education, where you have around the world business school after business school after business school, where you have around the world millions, not quite literally, but millions of, hundreds of thousands of MBA graduates. Qualification is no longer equated with talent. The test of talent is to have people who can take tough decisions. The test of talent is to have people in your business who can be creative, think of new products and services, think of new markets, who can contribute to the innovation agenda. You never need talent as much as in a period of economic recession. That talent, in terms of attracting that talent, puts added pressure on companies to present themselves as employers of first choice. Now, how do you do that is another question, but to present yourself as employers of first choice to attract the talent that you need in tough competitive environments.
I was talking to one CEO that didn't just want to survive the economic downturn, but was focused more on sort of building a strategic competitive advantage during this time, so that during the upturn, he'd be ahead of the game. Is that a pipe dream, or should he just shut up and try and survive this time?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the survival strategy, I think, is a sign of weak management, weak leadership. You don't want to survive, you want to grow. And high-performing businesses carry on growing. Okay, economic recession is a macroeconomic trend. It's about macroeconomics. It does mean that trading is tougher. It does mean your competitors are cutting their costs and you have to cut yours. It does mean that customers can try and do a tougher bargain, whether it's a supplier of a particular product or whether it's the retail consumers. The power relationships, the power dynamics changes somewhat. But economic recession is a time when I think the survival of the fittest becomes predominant and the high-performing business will excel. That's the high-performing business is the business that takes over the other businesses, that moves into markets where the profits are. So economic recession to me is very good news. It may sound silly to say that, and no CEO would agree with me, but the reality is to create a business that's fit, that's fresh, that's fun, that those conditions can be put in place in economic recession.
Because some CEOs just seem to have a strategy of cutting costs, and that's pretty much it. But it's not just about costs, is it?
In an economic recession, it's not just about cutting your costs. Of course, you have to do that. You have to do this reassessment. You know, are we being too fat? Are we being too flabby? Are we being unfit in certain aspects of our business? But in economic recession, it gives us that opportunity to reassess what we are doing, how we're doing it, and where we're doing it, and with what, in terms of our product portfolio. This puts on a very big kind of demand on a company to have talent. Why? To have talent that can innovate, talent that can reinvent the product and service portfolio, so that if you're doing well in tough times, you're going to do damn well when times get much, much easier and when times get better, in my view, in 3 to 4 years down the road.
Mike Harris actually reminded me the other day that Apple was born during the last major economic recession. So could you say that there's an actual benefit for CEOs to make sure their organisation has good habits to carry forward during the upturn?
I mean, that is absolutely right. I mean, I have a business. Okay, I'm a non-executive director, but also I set up a business, 20 years ago, sold that on. The present business that we have is leading us to address what we're doing, how we're doing it, the sorts of things I've already mentioned. And if you can do well in recession, by definition, you can do even better when things are going well. So it's the benchmark, really.
Ken Sheno, the CEO of American Express, actually says, and he's quoted in Fortune magazine as saying, a difficult economic environment argues for the need to innovate more, not to pull back, which goes along with exactly what you've been saying. So, but yet a lot of CEOs, a lot of organisations are doing the exact opposite of what you're suggesting. What would you say to them?
The panic culture sets in economic recession. The accountants take hold of things. They look at what appears to be an unnecessary expenditure. And the first things that tend to go are the marketing budget, or cuts in the marketing budget, and in the R&D activity. Quite the two functions that you should be investing in rather than cutting your costs. Because in economic recession, you need to market more, probably into new markets, probably because you're rolling out new products, which is linked to the fact that in economic recession, you should be putting greater emphasis upon adapting, modifying, and developing your product portfolio. So you should be increasing your R&D budget, and you should be increasing your marketing and sales budgets in economic recession, not cutting back. And what doesn't get cut back in economic recession is often what seem to be the core activities, but which somehow don't interface with either of those two functions. That is, that middle, flabby management structure made up of accountants, operational managers, and the people who are neither interfacing with the marketplace nor with developing new products. These people tend to be spared on the grounds that they are indispensable and can't be cut. Whereas in actual fact, the reality is, and what the self-confident leader should be doing, the self-confident corporate leader, is indeed cutting that middle mass out and focusing upon R&D and marketing.
Bevo.com